All right, we are live for a Friday edition of the Mike and Mario Show. Excited to be back. Looking forward to connecting. A lot of things worth touching on. But Mario, how you doing, my friend?
Well, I've had a bit of a cold this week, so
Hmm.
I'm feeling a bit under the weather.
Yeah.
But I'm busy reading about how crazy the world is getting
Hmm.
everywhere, be it in what's happening in Chicago with the police there,
Mm.
be it what's happening in Italy with
Yeah.
their pass. Today's their first day and all the strikes. Be what's happening. We just had like a member of parliament be assassinated here in the UK. Just
Hmm.
came out like a couple of hours ago.
Wow.
What else? We've had the People's Bank of China say that they can contain Evergrande. Um, yeah, just a lot of things going on. And also, since we spoke last Friday, you've had this situation with Southwest Airlines.
Hmm.
You've had, yeah, I think people are starting to rise up. Hopefully, it's still a minority, but movements like that start from a minority.
Yeah. Yeah, very true. Wow. So that's definitely a lot of stuff. So I actually wanted to start off today. So we're gonna definitely, share our 2 cents on all those topics there. But I want on a positive note, in regards to the metal space, I actually pulled up this little visual aid here, and it's overall very promising. And so I think last week we were in a $22 range, and so we end up getting up to the 23 range, even though as of right now, it's still a little bit in the red, a couple 19 cents for silver, $27 for gold, but it's still trending up, and that's a positive note in regards to the actual price starting to move upward a little bit. So I'm excited about that. But I'm curious. So do you think this is a result of something that they're losing control of something, or is this was a result of just the anticipation of people actually running towards the metal space for protection against all this inflationary lingo that we're hearing? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, on Wednesday we had the CPI numbers. They
Yeah.
came out a little higher than expected. And by that, I mean the headline CPI was 5.4.
Hmm.
Was expected 5.3. Uh, Gold was trading around 1775 at the time.
Hmm.
It had been rising in the morning in London, and then all of a sudden it dropped like $20 out of nowhere. And then it rebounded and almost went up to 800 that same day.
Hmm.
And up until earlier today, gold had tried to go through 1800. It did not succeed.
Yeah.
And earlier today, before the US came in, they bashed it down, and they've been bashing it down ever since. I think gold and silver are still the only indicators that the central bankers
Hmm.
can keep down in terms of inflation, because if gold and silver go up too much, it will confirm that
Yeah.
this inflation that we're seeing, or the rising prices, are not really transitory,
Right.
and that they're not. They're trying to tell us is they're blaming everything, supply chain, all this and that, shortages, but they're not looking at the bigger picture. That if you create money and credit like they've been doing
Yeah.
for ages, not just since March last year, but since '08, there will come a point where all that currency will flow to
Yeah.
consumer goods. And with the trigger of the pandemic last year and all the lockdowns, the closing of world economies and trade, it's disrupted the whole just in time inventory
Hmm.
system, the globalization system, and it's really tough to get it back together.
Yeah, I do agree. And then also to speak on some of the Fed. So let me pull this article up here about Bullard talking about 50-50 chance that, it's a 50% chance that, inflation might, dial back a little bit. But then again, there's a 50% chance that it might be a little bit higher as well next year. So I'm thinking like these
Yeah,
cats out here, they're jawboning, talking all this talk about
yeah,
if inflation, knowing dang well. I mean, clearly they know, but they can't be truthful with it. But with all this currency that they've created, as you just mentioned, how could it be temporary? And majority of it hasn't really even hit Main Street yet. So it's only going to go up from there. But here's another little article, of a person in the financial space talking about, higher inflation lasting into 2023. So these figures keep the dates keep being extended out a little bit. But
I guess she means higher prices because the inflation will never end under a
yeah.
fiat currency system. But I saw there's another Fed official barking,
Uh-huh.
Barkin,
Uh-huh.
that said that the inflation problem is a supply chain problem. It's got nothing to do with monetary policy.
Oh my goodness.
And someone tweeted that out with like laughing out loud,
Yeah.
like look at what this person said. And I said, well, she or he or she, I don't know if barking is a he or
Is a
she. I said,
guy.
oh, he's barking mad. I said, you know, they're, but I saw that the Atlanta Fed guy,
Mhm.
Raphael Boxic, I think his name is.
Uh-huh.
He actually has a little jar, and every time someone says transitory in the Atlanta Fed office, they have to put $1 in it because he doesn't believe it's transitory.
Uh-huh.
So there are some Fed guys um, who don't believe it either.
So the thing
But
is, like, so the whole board of governors, the whole FOMC group, it's amazing how they always have different opinions, but yet ultimately, when they take a vote, it seems like they still progress towards the agenda of continuously being accommodated towards the economy, even though the numbers might not support it. But the fact that they still they still have this false narrative that they can, I guess, save things or bring things back or help the recovery or whatever it's called.
uh,
And most people
yeah,
don't know. They believe it. They go for it. But clearly, they're trying to make sure they orchestrate us to that CBDC, because I'm hearing more and more about cashless society, more and more about CBDC stuff coming. And it's just a matter of time. Here's a question here I
yeah.
want to throw out there from Timo. It says, do you think gold will be confiscated again or become illegal? Big question there. Go ahead and touch on it if you want.
Yeah, I don't think so. They're already
Mhm.
confiscating it right now.
Yeah. Surprise, the
By
price suppression.
discouraging people from, we saw that tweet from Michael Saylor about
Yeah.
he said Bitcoin is the new gold, and I even replied to him. I said, so if Bitcoin is the, why would you want Bitcoin to be like gold if gold is so useless, right?
Yeah.
But the other thing, I saw loads of comments there, people saying, "Oh, I just sold my gold
Uh-huh.
in July, and I bought into Bitcoin." Loads of people saying that.
Yeah.
So they're already doing it through cryptos. They're already doing it through the manipulation.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the only upside of this manipulation, that we
Mhm.
can still keep stacking,
Yeah.
and I don't think they will need to confiscate, because such a
Mhm.
small proportion of the population will have any gold and silver that they'll still be in control.
Right.
Uh, and unfortunately for them, us stackers are going to be a bit of a nuisance for them.
Yeah, I agree. And I still, like, as far as the deliberate attack against gold, it's outright obvious that they would like to bash and shame anybody that hold gold and make them feel like they're not a part of this new transition to this digital space. And then they'll throw the numbers out there. Bitcoin has just hit $60,000. Like, if you held gold for the last 2-3 years, you've actually lost. It's like, regardless, I mean, like, you still can actually do well if you hold both. One, of course,
For how many years you said?
so I'm
6?
just saying, like, they'll throw out some
Yeah.
small, they'll throw out some small years.
You lost in terms of Bitcoin, but you haven't lost in terms of your national currency.
Correct, and they
You
won't,
see,
they don't usually throw
and
that in there.
Michael Saylor has lost in terms of Shiba Inu.
Yeah.
So
Oh man. And so speaking of which, I wanted that little picture I shared with you earlier about how just to show you how ridiculous this is becoming, somebody posted to Michael Saylor about doing an experiment, and they basically took an NFT of a gold nugget, and it's for sale right now on their website. And as of right now, it has 1 week before the auction ends, but it's going for $19,000 for a gold nugget that's spinning around in the form of NFT. And so my guess will be it probably will be sold at some point as a joke or a stab at gold. But in the long run, I wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable holding a spinning image rather than a real piece of something. So, but this is just
Yeah.
the day and age we're in, my friend.
What about if the power goes out like in Beirut
Yeah,
last weekend? How are you
for
going to
real.
see your NFT gold nugget?
Won't be what?
I've got my real gold nugget here, which I bought years ago on eBay. I can still hold it.
Uh-huh. Chris, I appreciate the love offering. It says, if the Fed grew a conscious and raised rates 5 to 10%, would gold and silver still move higher in light of all the inflation created? Yeah, raise rates. Wow. They raise rates 5 to 10% with gold and
Well,
silver.
I think if they raise rates to 5 or 10% in the next year,
Mm.
the whole system would collapse.
Mm-hmm.
And all the bond market would collapse, the stock market would collapse, the Dow would be down to like 2 or 3,000. Gold might still be at 2,000, or let's say it doesn't move.
Mm.
Then it's gold is going to hold its purchasing power.
Yeah.
So they don't have a
Good one.
way out.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm hearing from central bankers and from economists that in the city or on Wall Street, for example, is that they're thinking of raising rates maybe to 1% or so by the end of next year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 1% is nothing. We're seeing consumer prices rising at 5.5% for the last 3-4 months. So how is 1% going to be good? And I don't think these rising prices, the CPI is going to come off. I think it's going to go even higher. It's not transitory. And even if it's transitory, if we go back to 2 or 3% CPI, and you have the Fed funds rate at 1%, you're still losing 1.5 to 2%. So, but back in the 70s, interest rates went from like around 5% to all the way to 20%. The discount rate, the 10-year yield went up. 10-year yield went up to 16%, and yet gold went from 35 to 900. The Fed and other central banks are behind the curve. They cannot afford to raise rates more than the rate of price increases, or else they'll bring everything down.
Right.
This whole economy is based on easy credit. Why do you think JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley are doing so well? It's not because the economy is doing well, it's because they've got basically free money to do loads of deals. And they're the broker for all these deals between big corporations. And that's even what James Gorman, the CEO of Morgan Stanley, admitted. I listened to his interview. Yeah, we've had free money. Thank you, Fed. But now you need to raise rates a bit. But of course, he's just saying maybe up to 1 or 2%. But you never hear these guys talk about, because interest rates should really be now 7 or 8 with where CPI is.
Yeah.
And we're at 0.
Yeah, and then I see another comment here. Timo says raising rates will hurt gold. So at least that's what history shows. And so my thought on that is that in typical time frames, based upon the past, that might be the case. But yeah, given the fact that we are at the end point of the current monetary structure, I can imagine all those financial products, of course, doing extremely bad. But then again, you got to look at, you don't really want to be holding any of those promises to pay our government liabilities at that time. So having gold, even if the spot price does tank, still would give me more of a sense of comfort than actually having exposure to something on the screen.
I don't agree with Timo. He needs to look at the 1970s. As I said, the 10-year yield in the early 70s was around 4.5 to 5%.
Yeah.
By 1980, when gold topped at $887,
yeah,
it was $887.50 the high. That's what Jim Sinclair always told us.
Yeah.
The 10-year yield was in double digits. So gold went from 35 to almost 900 and interest rates doubled, then went into double digits. So I'm sorry, what's your name again? Timo.
Yeah.
History proves you wrong in the 70s, and uh, now it's even worse because they've kept interest rates artificially low since 2008 or 9, and I would even argue it goes back further. It goes back to Alan Greenspan in the early 2000s and Ben Bernanke. Uh, they kept rates too low. That's why we had the housing bubble.
Hmm.
That's why we have the everything bubble right now, which they had to save last March, and it's still an everything bubble.
Yeah, and it's so the question is, how much longer can they keep these everything bubbles going before something gives? And that's why I think there's such a they're so pressed to put forth all these mandates and measures and passports and get as much done as they can before we get out of this year, given the fact next year is going to bring a whole nother can of worms that will be thrown at with all types of stuff as well. So
Yeah,
but speaking of
sometimes
which,
I wonder if all these mandates, these rules, not only just in the US, but
mhm,
Italy, here, everywhere around the Western world, is being done on purpose to
mhm,
bring down the economies and then bring in and get everyone on their apps,
mhm,
which I don't have one.
yeah,
I've refused to download any apps to do with this crisis. And then once you bring everything down, then you have the Brit coin from the Bank of England. You can have the Fed coin sent directly to you to help you out.
mhm,
But there will be a lot of strings attached. And hopefully, yeah, hopefully people who listen to you and I to Rethinking the Dollar channel and Monaco 64 channel will be, uh, how can I say, not dependent on the
mhm,
states to have to download this app and deal with the devil, i.e., the
right,
central banks. Because I saw this week that the chancellor of the exchequer here in
mhm,
the UK, he was talking about the digital currencies, and he said, uh, that the Bank of England would be issuing it directly. And we know now that it's not the central banks that issue currency. It's the commercial banks, private
mhm,
banks. When you get a loan with a bank, they'll credit your account. But now
yeah,
it's going to come directly from the central banks. And I think all this Green New Deal, this climate change, all these mandates, uh, and we're seeing already people walking off their jobs, like in Chicago, the police,
mhm,
Southwestern Airlines in Italy. You had strike today, strikes of dock workers and truck drivers. And I saw a guy on Twitter in Italy, in Milan. He
mhm,
was in the terrace in his house, and
yeah,
he was showing a picture of the street below, and he
mhm,
said, "Usually it's really busy here. We've got cars. No one's going to work today because it's the first day of this." So I think they want to bring down everything and
mhm,
then bring in this digital currency. And I think they're trying to push people into digital currencies, and Bitcoin and all the other cryptos are part of this,
yeah,
even though I don't think the CBDCs are going to be anything like digital cryptocurrencies, but the majority of people will never know the difference.
right. And then if they succeed in creating as much pain as they appear to be doing, then out of sheer desperation, a lot of people will just sign up out of the fact that they're going to need a way to transact in the mainstream economy. Because here's one of the things I'm still kind of figure out how to work around is that all of our daily lively expenditures, all our bills will end up being due through that format at some time. And now it's a matter of how can you still pay for your food as well as your all your monthly deductions without using that. And that's where it's like, okay, I'm sure they're going to come up with some type of technology piece that allow people to bypass that. But you
Yeah,
have to. It's going to be.
they might have to bring down all the banks, because if they bring out all the banks, you're going to be forced to use the
Mhm.
central bank digital currency. I mean, that's what they had in Romania in the 90s. Star Path Academy said there's only one bank,
Yeah.
but it's difficult to see that happening with banks like J.P. Morgan and Goldman Sachs around. Will that really? Who knows?
Yeah. Interesting. Anyway, so we are streaming live, so feel free to throw out some questions or some thoughts, and we'll definitely touch on it, share our 2 cents on it. And then I'm curious. You hinted at earlier the whole China situation, and they're lying over there. So that article about the central bank said that it's controllable, but yeah, I think we're on the fourth one now. Third, we got Evergrande, Cynic, and Fantasia. So any
Yeah,
minute now we're going to have our the fourth developer that's going to be defaulting on their debt. So how
yeah.
is that actually controllable?
Yeah, I mean, central bankers and officials always say those kind of things.
Yeah.
It's like Ben Bernanke said that the subprime mortgage crisis was contained,
Uh-huh.
didn't he? This guy is saying it's controllable. But what's interesting is that PwC, which is a Western company,
Hmm.
Price Waterhouse Coopers, apparently they are under investigation because they were auditing Evergrande for the
Yeah.
last few years. And so it's not just the Chinese system that's bad. It's also our Western institutions that are probably making 42 million from it. Of course, you're going to give them a good
A good
bill of
clean bill of
health.
health. Oh yeah, their books is fine.
Yeah,
And speaking of which, it is a little bit off topic, but you mentioned this earlier. So other than just Miles, appreciate you. Says British conservative lawmaker David Ames has died after being stabbed on Friday during a
yeah,
meeting. So with constituents at a church in eastern England. So this comes out of
yeah.
nowhere.
We mentioned that when we started the live
Yeah.
stream, and actually, uh, you've been listening to Cliff High, haven't you? He
Uh-huh.
he said, I think a week or two ago that there would be a stabbing on a boat. Do you remember that? A famous person would
I
be
remember that one.
stabbed.
No.
Yeah, he said a famous person would be stabbed in his yacht or boat.
Hmm.
And I'd never heard of this MP, but MPs, I guess, uh, they're important, so to speak. He might not be famous, but the place where he was stabbed was in a place called Leon C.
Hmm.
See, in
Yeah.
Essex. I know Leon C. So he wasn't stabbed on his yacht, but he was in Leon C. So it's like a
Okay.
web bot hit, I think.
Yeah.
But what is this all about? I've read a little bit about this MP. He was
Uh-huh.
apparently uh, the Daily Mail is saying he was a right winger. He
Hmm.
was very conservative, and now some people are saying because a week or two ago, a Labour MP came out and said that Boris Johnson was scum, which is
Hmm.
quite a derogative, very not a very nice thing to say. And some
Yeah.
people are saying that is that kind of language that leads to this kind of stuff. But I don't know. He was just meeting his constituents,
Uh-huh.
and someone just came and like stabbed him. So
So now it's going to be the response. Like if this was just a random attack, he happened to be a political official, then it'll just blow right by. But if he was targeted, and so now they say, because over here in the US, the lingo now is domestic, with the T
yeah,
word behind it. And
yeah,
so they're saying parents now, by expressing concerns and being loud and boisterous at your local school meetings, you're now a threat to the school officials. And so now, if the political figure in the UK was, killed, now that could be the news language they're going to try to say
yeah,
that
yeah.
the
They're
UK
gonna,
people
or
are
they
dangerous.
might be they might also use this as an excuse to crack down on protesters,
Hmm. Hmm.
because you've seen people get very angry about all that's going on.
Yeah.
And we might find out that I don't know, I think it's a 25-year-old guy who
Yeah.
stabbed him. We have to see what they're going to say about this person,
They
whether
could.
he was,
Oh my god,
they
they
could
can
say
use anything.
he was an anti, you know what, and
Right.
that he,
Or he was with one of those terrorist cells and the Hezbollah.
yeah,
They can
yeah,
thought
or
anything, man.
yeah. Well, and apparently this guy was anti-abortion and anti same-sex marriage,
Uh-huh.
so anti-LGBT and all that stuff. So we'll have to wait and see. But that's another symptom, I think, of a collapsing system when you get political assassinations.
Yeah.
Um, like this, I've read about Weimar Germany. It was a bit different there. It was
Hmm.
after the fall of the German Empire in World War One. The
Hmm.
Kaiser abdicated and Germany became a republic. There's a lot of political assassinations, but it was mostly, I guess, uh, politicians and their factions eliminating each other. I'm not sure what this really means, though. It's
Yeah.
too early to tell.
Yeah, and so speaking of how politicians happen to get special treatment and are able to just do what they want in the midst of all these alleged, pandemics that we're experiencing, but
Yeah.
that COP26, I want to talk about that now because
Oh, yeah.
that's another event that exposes how the rules don't apply to everybody equally, and so I think that's also about 30,000 delegates are supposed to be coming to this event on the climate crises, but they're exempt from having to do any of the passport or having all those
Yeah.
passport restrictions on their lives during this time frame here, and the people are not too happy with that.
Yeah. Yeah, they won't need because I think in Scotland, uh, you need a pass.
Yeah,
Sorry, uh, a COVID pass or whatever they call it up there to
yeah,
go to football games or to go to the cinema. But these 30,000 officials from all over the world, they won't need a pass. And this guy here says, he said people are angry, gonna.
yeah.
I think a lot of people don't even know about it, but people are starting to find out. I heard about this weeks ago that they wouldn't need the pass
Uh-huh.
for this COP26, and I also heard that I saw a story that apparently Xi Jinping is not gonna go to this COP26,
Yeah.
and
It,
which is a big blow to this COP26 because
right.
they expected the Russians and the Chinese to be there, and it
Right.
looks like Putin won't be going either.
Yeah, and I've read
Excuse
the
me.
article here about China, having their energy crisis, because they're depending heavily on coal, so they can't really participate in this climate agenda the way that the West is trying to push it on the world. And even at COP26, I was reading some of the details as to how they want to have climate financing, where they want to put forth $100 billion towards coming up with a game plan on how to, I guess, keep the temperature from rising by 1.5 degrees or something like that. I'm like, huh? Like you spend to lessen by 2 degrees or one. Like, how do you measure all that? So it just goes to show that none of this is really well thought out.
Well, this is all part of this ESG, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
environment. Is it ESG? What does it stand for again? Environment, social and corporate governance, and they've been pushing this for at least 4 years, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
I was invited to like an alternative investment conference about 3 years ago by someone I used to work with in the city many years ago, and he watches my videos, I think, and said, "Oh, why don't you come to this conference?" And these were all fund managers, hedge fund managers, and they were all talking about this ESG.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is part of all this this energy crisis. Is
Yeah.
that they've been focusing a lot of the investment in these renewables, and they've neglected natural gas, coal, oil, and that's why we're seeing all the shortages.
Yeah. So BlackRock, Larry Fink. So when you have all of these big tech companies and big billionaire, and so this past week we were talking about just the hierarchy of the puppets at play in this whole pandemic, and a lot of these billionaires being a part of the Committee of 300. So we were diving down that,
Yeah,
just looking at some of that, and of course the Council of 13. And I mean, it's just
yeah.
stuff goes very, very deep. But
And I think Mark Carney, who was ex Goldman Sachs,
uh-huh,
ex Bank of Canada governor, and ex Bank of England governor, he's going to be the guy heading the COP26.
uh-huh,
He's like the big environmental guy, and he's a banker as well. And he's saying that in the future, or probably even now,
yeah,
companies will not get any funding if they don't focus on green energy. So
hmm,
if you wanted to start a mining company to mine coal here in England or
yeah,
something, to build a coal plant, or you wouldn't get the financing. You might, though, if you do it through crowdfunding. I thought of that. Maybe we can start an
Mhm.
anti-ESG movement. I don't think they'd like that. They'd probably make it very hard.
Yeah.
Not that I think the planet should be trashed,
Mhm.
but I just think they're taking it too far
Yeah.
because you can have clean coal, you can have clean energy with fossil fuel too. You just have to be more careful.
Yeah. I just don't like how this whole, heal the world, let's all come together happens to be on their terms with their products that they're spinning out, which happens to be with more
Yeah,
currency creation and not really with actionable steps that your average person can do,
yeah,
including them, because all the businesses, they're the heavy polluters. So, how
yeah,
can you have actually, go green now when your entire building, your office building itself consumes thousands of
yeah,
gigawatts worth
yeah.
of energy?
I was just thinking about that. I was thinking about that the other day. If you go to Canary Wharf here, which is like the one of the financial centers in the city,
Mhm.
you've got all these high rises. Like all the big banks have these
Uh-huh.
high rises that you have Manhattan, you go to New York, you go to all the big cities, and they're telling us that we're not supposed to. We're supposed to stay in our house and don't go out and don't burn energy,
Yeah.
and they're not even dealing in real money. They're dealing in speculation, and they've been behind this unbridled development that we've had since the early 70s, mainly because we've had a system where you need to consume and consume,
Mhm.
and you need more and more debt.
Yeah.
So the same people who have ruined everything, the monetary system, the economy, they're telling us, oh, we're going to solve the problem.
Yeah.
Trust in us. We're going to build back better, right?
Yeah. How and to what standard are you planning on building back better? Here's another
Yeah.
question I saw from Timo. Let me grab this real quick. It says, do either of you think there is a place for decentralized crypto along with gold and silver? Question. And also, can silver really help the people come through this monetary change? Great question. There's to me, there's room for both. And so of course, we're being steered towards a crypto space. So if you are a part of that space, then you can use that to help you increase your holdings of the actual real tangible asset, which happens to be, in my opinion, as I call it, silver to me is actually money. So, you can actually get more money by probably speculating in the crypto space, depending on how you do it. But I think it's room for both. But yeah, in the end, I would rather have something real tangible that I can feel in case the power goes out, which it looks like in a lot of places it is
Yeah.
going out. So,
Yeah. I think one of the reasons why cryptos have evolved is because people don't trust authority anymore.
mhm,
And they've had to create this trustless open source system, which is what the blockchain is.
yeah,
But I think we need trust in the world. It's not, you can't just have yeah, I think even in a trustless system, you can lose trust.
mhm,
So I think in the end of the day, what we need is to be more honest with each other.
mm,
Yes, of course, there's always going to be people trying to have one over you,
mhm,
but yeah, but it is possible to have a decentralized system where you can tokenize gold and silver. But the problem is you're going to have to store it somewhere, and that's not
mhm.
going to be someone's going to be looking after that. So that's a bit
Right.
kind of
That's a trust
centralized.
factor, the
Yeah,
counterparty
that's
risk
right.
there.
You have to trust people, and uh,
Yeah.
yeah, but it's
Here's a
difficult.
Here's another thought here, and I'm sure he's just being funny with it. But it says metals are dead, Bitcoin is the future, and then to play along with that trust side of things, like literally, people are becoming more trustworthy or more confident rather in computer code than actual chemical elements that are a part of humanity. Like that no matter what, you won't be able to fully operate your computer without some of the metals that come from the earth, which those chemical compounds, even though they're science is trying to create them and whatever reproduce them, but it's one thing between chemical elements and computer code. Like why would you want to choose one or the other? If you're going to have code, why wouldn't you also want to have the chemical elements? Just because it's the best way, I think, of actually being out of the system with minimum counterparty risk whatsoever. It's nobody else's liability. It's yours. And it's something that cannot go to zero. Like, if the power goes out, it won't go to zero, type of
Yeah.
ordeal. So I don't know. I don't see how people want to argue, big metals are dead, nothing but crypto. Like, come on now. Like,
Well, I'm glad he's saying that because that means they're not dead, really.
mhm,
I would be worried if it was the other way around, then I'd probably think about getting into cryptos. But
mhm,
I have exposure to cryptos, but I don't think metals are dead.
yeah.
And we've had 50 years of everything focused on thin air, financialization. And I'm not against technology and what's happening with cryptos and
Mhm,
everything, but we've neglected the real world,
yeah.
commodities. I think there's a huge potential there
Mhm,
in commodities, and especially with all the monetary and credit inflation we've seen in the last 50 years
mhm.
since Nixon closed the gold window.
Yeah, have you? So Rolf says, look up British Fabian socialism and Cecil Rhodes and the plan for a globalist new world order. The Rhodes Scholars and London School of
Oh,
Economics.
I can answer that. I'm really well aware of these people.
Uh huh.
Cecil Rhodes, he also founded the Round Table,
Hmm.
and he created the Royal Institute for International Affairs,
Hmm.
which is known as Chatham House. And then I think in 1920, after World War One, they created the American arm of Chatham House, which is the Council on Foreign Relations.
Hmm.
And Cecil Rhodes also created the Rhodes Scholarship, which is for bright American university students to go to Oxford to get like a to study at Oxford University. Bill
Hmm.
Clinton was a Rhodes Scholar, and there's a lot of people that have been in government in the U.S. that were Rhodes Scholars.
Hmm.
And I noticed as well that the Rhodes Scholars, Rhodes Scholarship,
Hmm.
uh, they started a program. Guess for what students in which country? China in about 2015. So these people, yeah, they the Rhodes. I think he opened up the South African diamond fields and gold fields
Yeah.
back in the late 1800s. A lot of people think he was financed by the Rothschilds. He was actually single. He didn't leave, didn't have a family, and he left everything in trust,
Hmm.
his fortune, and it's still being. Some people think there are people behind this, and he created also the Fabian Society. Yeah, and their goal is really uh, to take over the United States, the colonies that they
Hmm.
lost,
Hmm.
and to have the British Empire rise again. So yeah,
Mm.
and they did name Rhodesia after him, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice dark past is coming to the light. And his all his operations and entities are still up and running. So that his unfortunately his legacy, I'm sure, still is being continued on by his by
Yeah,
his descendants.
well, not his descendants really, but the people who run Chatham House, the people who run the CFR in New York, they're all in it together. They are the internationalists. They're
Yeah.
the globalists. Uh, they also control the central banks. They're all intermingled. Rockefellers, Rothschilds, Morgans, all these people.
Yeah. Sick and twisted. Man. These people are trying to, and of course, I was, and this is off topic, but I was looking at that COP26. I was going to point out how, Microsoft is involved in that. So, Mr. Gates had his
Ooh,
tentacles spread everywhere.
what a surprise.
Yeah, for real. Oh, man. All right. Well, we approaching our 40-minute mark, man. Ready to dial back some. This was a very lively chat. Great to see you guys. See that in chat. So let's end off with some good news, man. Mario, what's here in Michigan it's kind of dreary today, so it's gonna get a little nippy. So it's getting outdoors won't be as easy as it was last week, but hopefully this weekend is better. But what comes to mind on your side, Mario?
Uh, the good news, I think it's more all around the world, is that some people are starting to say no.
Hmm.
And I saw this guy on TikTok. He was an older guy. He worked in construction site.
Construction,
Yeah,
yeah.
and he was Hispanic American, and he said our boss came and said we need this pass,
Mhm.
and we all just walked out. A couple of hundred of us, we just walked out the gate, and he came running and told us to come back and said he don't need it. I think that's the most encouraging thing I've seen this
Yeah.
week. Not just that guy, but elsewhere as well in Italy. People are striking because they're saying we don't want this. This is and not just the pass, but also I don't want to have to do a test every
Mhm.
time I do something. I want to everything scrapped. So that's encouraging. Um, yeah, and it feels lonely though because the mainstream media is still so ubiquitous and people still believe in it
Yeah.
that sometimes you kind of feel like, oh, is this going to really happen? Are we going to have a Red Sea moment where Pharaoh is defeated?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Good point there. And then and also to that, just more mainstream or celebrity figures are questioning and starting to speak up. So you mentioned about the article about Kyrie Irving from New Jersey Nets, not New or Brooklyn Nets rather, how he's questioning things and it's drawing a lot of attention. And of course, the mainstream media trying to spin it as if he's crazy because he's always been, unpredictable, yada yada yada. But by him basically standing his ground, if he's able to do so and show that, having 17, 20 million on the table that you might lose is not worth your health now and in the future, might get more people to begin questioning some things and waking up. So he's, standing his ground as of now. Hopefully he does continuously. So, but that's good to see him stick to his guns. Where last week before we had another NBA player that said, you know what, he's like, just goes to show it. I don't own my own body because he ended up, getting injected and not want to, mess up his money. And it's like, okay, money, your health. Yeah, everybody, sees things in a different lens. So, but anyway, more people are speaking out and that's a good thing, man. So hopefully more people do it. And also, Sanjay Gupta, the doctor, was on Joe Rogan.
I saw that.
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
and he was stumbling and he just like thrown off guard. But so hopefully see more of that where the
Yeah,
people
Joe
start
Rogan
blundering.
basically said, "Well, the network you work for, they lie," and he couldn't like counter.
Right. You can say. Well, hey man, I appreciate everybody for hanging out with us this Friday. I want you guys to have a blessed weekend and back at it next week, of course, more stuff worth touching on. But stay prayed up and of course enjoy this time while you have it because it's still a blessing to be able to have the opportunity to do things we're doing now. So appreciate everybody for joining us. Mario, have a great weekend and everybody be blessed, be safe. Peace.